This is Skill Building Workshop number 7. We're talking about getting the best measurement practices with the Keysight 4024 scope. And this is video number 2, and I just want to show you really quickly the equipment that you're going to need for the next few videos where we explore using this scope. We're going to use 3 different cables throughout the next few videos. The first one I want to show you is a coax cable that has the same connectors on the ends. We call these BNC connectors. They're named after the 3 scientists at Bell Labs in the 50s that developed this connector. It's sometimes referred to as a bayonet connector. Here's a close-up of it, and you can see it's coaxial in the sense there's a center connector and there's an outer shield, and you can see also that in the way it's connected into the scope there is a little flange and there are little pins sticking out. This is called bayonet connector. It slips in, you have to just adjust it, and then you rotate it and it locks it in place. And so as in addition to a coaxial cable, there's also of course the coaxial connector on the end of the scope. This particular cable, coax cable, the special name for this specific type of cable is, and you can kind of see it here on the side, RG58. Let's see if we can see that. RG58, it's a particular specification. It's about a 50 ohm characteristic impedance coax cable. Pretty good cable. We're going to use it quite a bit. This particular one has BNCs on the ends, and that's going to be ideal when we go between instruments that already have a BNC on the end, such as a function generator. So first cable is coax with BNCs on the end. Second cable is also a coax cable. It's got a BNC on one end, but the other end you can see the cable has been broken out into 2 wires. We want to try to keep these wires as short as practical. This is a little bit long, but it'll make do for us. And you'll notice one of them is black and one of them is red. Which one do you think the black cable connects to? We get 2 choices here on the cable. It's going to be the outer shield or the center conductor. The center conductor is usually we call it the signal. The outer shield we usually refer to as the return. And so which do you think connects where? Well, as you might imagine, and you can test, don't take my word for it, you can reverse engineer this and test it. Use a digital multimeter. Measure the resistance between the center conductor and which one of these we have connectivity with. You're going to find it's the red one. Red connects to the center. The black connects to the shield. So remember that, it's going to be really important. And that's the typical kind of color coding. Generally, black lead is going to be a ground connection. Second cable. It's coaxial. It's got a BNC on one end, and it's broken out. We call these mini grabber tips. If you have one that has alligator clips, perfectly fine. Do not use one that has banana connectors on the ends for this series of measurements. It's not the appropriate type of connector. And we'll see again where we use this sort of cable. And then the third kind of cable we're going to use is also coaxial, but it's a very, very special type of cable. This is we sometimes refer to this as a 10x probe. You'll notice there's a 10x marking over here. We can slide the end from 10x to 1x. As we will see when we talk about the details of the 10x probe, never ever use the 1x. There is 0 reason for it, and we'll see that it distorts the signal quite a bit. So we want to be careful if we ever use that 1x setting. We always want to use the 10x setting. And we'll spend quite a bit of time talking about the 10x probe because it is really the workhorse probe that we're going to use over and over again with the scope. So we're going to put the 10x probe aside for a later video. We're going to put the coax with the 2 BNCs aside for a later video. When we start talking about measuring the signals from the function generator, we're going to use the coax with 2 BNCs. For now, to get started with, we're going to use the coax cable that has a BNC on one end, and it's got the signal and the return pins pulled apart in the cable. And in particular, we're going to be looking at a built-in signal source on every scope. It's sometimes referred to as the compensation connection or the probe calibration. It's generally used with the 10x probe to do compensation, which we'll see the details of in a little bit. But for now, we're just going to use it as a signal source. So make sure you've got the coax cable, BNC on one end, the mini grabbers or alligators on the other, and we're going to connect up the center tap of this. Now let's see if we can see it in a little more detail. The center top is ground, and if you look very close, you can see it labeled ground under here. And then the next the connection we're going to use, the little lug on the side, that says probe compensation, and that's what we're going to connect in. So there we are. We're set, ready to go. So before we get into the measurements in the next video, I want you to go ahead and grab yourself the coax cable with the BNC on one side, the mini grabbers on the other. We can connect it in, and then we're going to, in the next video, talk about getting started with our first measurements.